Actress Jodie Foster has spoken to BBC Breakfast, talking to Charlie actually, for the first time since the Harvey Weinstein scandal sent shockwaves through Hollywood.
Yeah, she's been speaking to me about the issues it raises and reflected a little more generally on women's voices in the workplace.
Well, I can't speak to the Harvey Weinstein story. I don't know him. I've never worked with him. I don't have any knowledge of him at all. So, yeah, I don't really have anything to say about that. It's an interesting time in the world, I think, for women. There's a consciousness in the world that is higher than it's ever been. And then there's a lack of consciousness in the world and a lack of ethics in the world that's higher than it's ever been. It happens everywhere. Black, white, small, female, male. You know, the sexual abuse and sexual harassment in the workplace is very widespread. It's certainly not exclusive to our industry. But I will speak to how incredibly good it feels to hear women's voices, lots of women's voices from every part of the industry. Just all of the narratives that have come out, different narratives that aren't just about the salacious details of a pig in a hotel room, you know, that are about what it is to be a woman in the workplace, what it is to carry around a foundation of shame with you from the time that you were born, what it is to not want to be sexualized every single time you walk out of the street. You know, feminism wasn't just invented yesterday or 3 minutes ago. I mean, women's issues are something that has been important and that is important and has been a part of our lifetime, and suddenly there are people who are actually wanting to talk about it.
So it's Jodie Foster reflecting a little bit on events in Hollywood, but also interestingly thinking about things on a wider scheme as well. It is worth saying that she is directing part of the Black Mirror TV series. We'll hear more of that interview nearer the time in December, when we'll be hearing more from her. But yes, she was definitely thoughtful about how women's voices, you heard there, are being heard more, and she's thinking that is a good thing.
It's very interesting to hear her point of view. We're going to discuss it, the wider discussion as well. We're joined now by employment lawyer and HR consultant Emma Renke and occupational psychologist Shelly Rubinstein. Thank you very much for joining us both. Thanks very much. I mean, first of all, you know, we're talking about, obviously, what's been talked about in Westminster, in Hollywood, but very interesting hearing from Jodie Foster about women's voices, isn't it? What do you make of what she said, first of all?
Well, I think it's about taking the power back, women taking the power back, because often sexual harassment is about power and control of men over women. And
what about you as well?
I think it's really important that an open culture is created. I think workplaces can do a lot to create an environment where employees feel that they can talk about these issues.
Emma, what's your experience, you know, in the workplace? Do the recourse to employment law, I guess for many people is the one place you don't want to be. Either the company nor the individual nor the victim wants to be in that situation, but sometimes it is necessary, and possibly the backdrop to someone feeling like they could do something in advance of getting to that stage.
I think that it's really disappointing when these issues do end up in an employment tribunal. Obviously, legislation needs the teeth behind it, but there's a lot that HR and organisations can do to prevent these type of matters reaching that level. Because
presumably you must have seen so many cases where it's not a one-off incident. You know, if things get to that scale, you look at a track record, you know, there is a behaviour pattern that could at some point have been, well, addressed. Possibly not stopped, but addressed.
Definitely, and as I said before, creating an environment where employees feel that they can raise those concerns, and also where line managers and individuals in the business know how to look out for these kind of issues and tackle them at first instance.
And I know that you work specifically with companies, don't you, on how to sort of deal with culture. Let's talk about the impact on victims, and they can be male or female, can't they? So what kind of impact does it have on them, and how does it affect them in the workplace?
Okay, so physically there can be feelings of nausea and a whole range of headaches, insomnia, and there are also the emotional impact. So people can lose confidence and self-esteem, there's increased anxiety, and that means that people are concentrating less on their work and more on the issue. And it also leads to people talking about it and people losing confidence in the company, so it has a broader impact.
And how important is it that if somebody has something that's made them uncomfortable, for example, is able to report it?
Well, so that's one of the things that we do. We go into organisations, and I very much agree with Emma that it's about creating that culture and having the policies and guidelines. So one of the things we know from Westminster is that having an independent place to go, because sometimes it is your line manager who's doing the harassing. So having an independent approach and creating a culture of treating every employee, male or female, with respect is at the heart of it.
Shelley, patterns of behaviour, inappropriate behaviour,
Yeah.
can almost inadvertently be endorsed by people around, can't they? So if the culture is one that allows certain language or certain physical, you know, it can be literally about the way people behave physically.
Yes.
That can legitimise someone's behaviour patterns.
It can, and that links back to the culture. So we've heard in the past people talking about laddish culture and what's acceptable. And again, it goes back to that respect. So we make it very clear when we go in and we help with policies and training people about how to behave, that that isn't acceptable. And people think, oh, it's humorless, it's feminist and all that kind of stuff. Actually, it isn't. It's about human decency and about helping people to do the best job that they can do and not feel that they're being controlled by others in an inappropriate way.
Emma, I suppose we need to talk as well some ways about sort of grey areas, don't we? And where is there a clear line, and where is that line?
I agree with Shelley that training is key, so that individuals understand what constitutes sexual harassment, because I think there can be issues with that. I don't think there is a full-on grey area. I think if we take a zero-tolerance approach, then that's the best way to prevent these type of issues arising and getting out of hand.
You see, this is where it gets difficult, though, isn't it? Zero tolerance is one of those phrases. You can say it here, and does that mean anything in legal terms? I mean, and in practical terms, in the workplace, what does zero tolerance mean? Zero tolerance of what?
Well, when we talk about the legal terms, what the law says is that when we're talking about sexual harassment, it's the purpose, not just the purpose, but the effect that that has on the victim. So that's a subjective test. So where we're preventing all kinds of these behaviours, so taking a zero tolerance approach, then we're going to be complying with the law.
Shelley, just pick up on that thought about zero tolerance. Is that what it needs to be?
Well, I think so, because it starts with one thing and it leads to another. And I think it goes back to education in schools about teaching each other respect. But in the workplace, if we are saying what are the values of the organisation and are people doing that, then zero tolerance is about everything. But it's not about not having any humour. It's about what's appropriate and understanding.
And do you think we're in a position now, because we heard Michael Fallon talking about a culture some 10, 15 years ago, that's what he referred to. Do you think we are in a sort of stage now where we are sort of going through a major cultural shift?
I think so. I think it's a generational issue. I think older people might have thought it was acceptable then, but what we know is that there are fewer younger people in the workforce, and they do not want to work in places that have cultures like this. And so with the way that we're going to have fewer young people available, we need to attract people, and that means that we have to stamp this out, and zero tolerance is a crucial part of that.
Shelley, thank you very much. Emma, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.